thelandofisrael.com and Israel National TV present Ari Abramowitz and Jeremy Gimpel. Live from the heart of Israel, it's Tuesday Night Live in Jerusalem.
Everybody, and welcome to Tuesday Night Live in Jerusalem. 2 weeks ago, Ari and I were called up for reserve duty. We were stationed in Ramallah, and we've been there ever since. I want to tell you guys a story, though, before Ramallah. What happened to us the night before we went for reserve duty? Ari and I decided that we had a friend that was sick in Tel Aviv, and we wanted to go visit him in the hospital. So we went in our cars, we drove down to Tel Aviv, and it was the night before our reserve duty, so we thought, all the mitzvahs we can occur, the better. So we went down to Tel Aviv, we went to visit our friend in the hospital, we sat down with him, Ari made him laugh, we sat with him for a while. It was time to go, and as we were leaving the hospital, I caught in the corner of my eye that there was a McDonald's in the lobby of the hospital in Tel Aviv. I looked a little bit closer, and it was a kosher McDonald's. And I thought, now, Ari and I, we usually try to eat really healthy. We do. And it was late at night, but what can we do? It was a kosher McDonald's in the middle of Tel Aviv. We felt it was incumbent upon us to support the kosher establishment in Tel Aviv.
You're the only person I know that makes an ideological statement out of French fries.
Thank you. Anyway, so we went inside, we ordered a side of fries, and of course, immediately, Ari and I start pulling shtick with the Tel Avivians behind the counter. So we start telling them, I'm from Atlanta, he's from Texas, we're going to Miluim tomorrow. And the girl behind the counter, she had earrings all over her ear. I mean, she had an earring on the inside of her ear. Every time I go to Tel Aviv, I find a new place you can put a ring. So we started talking to them, telling them about the Jewish army, and she looked at us kind of shocked and kind of proud. And so we're telling her about being a modern-day Maccabee in the Jewish country and the Jewish army. And we pretty much regurgitated the last 4 episodes of Tuesday Night Live. And the truth is, by the end of the conversation, half of McDonald's was really involved. And they brought us our chips, they brought us our French fries, that's what we call it over here. And I took the French fries, I said, Ari, what bracha do we make on these French fries? I mean, are these really potatoes? It is McDonald's. I mean, is it shahakol? Is it nadama? And then this woman behind the counter with a metal ear turns to me and says, "Ha-chips lo shina tzurato meha tapuach adama mekori, az mevarchim borei peri ha-adama." They said, the French fry hasn't changed the potato from its original form, so you should make the traditional standard blessing for vegetables. And I looked at her and all of the people behind the counter, and they had McDonald's hats and McDonald's shirts, and they had a big sign McDonald's behind them. And I looked at them and I said, only in Israel does the woman behind the desk, metal ear or not, know the rational halachic justification for what bracha to make on the French fries they serve us. And I looked at her and I said, Hadar, Baruch atah Hashem Elokeinu melech haolam borei peri ha'adama. And half of McDonald's shouted Amen. And
Ronald was looking in awe.
I turned to Hadar and I said, Hadar, you ask us why we're in Israel, why we've come from America, and why we're going to reserve duty tomorrow? We're going to reserve duty because we really love Israel.
Now, many of you may be wondering, Ari, Jeremy, how could you possibly do a television show completely exhausted on 3 hours sleep? And the answer is simple. We just made sure to... The truth is, this show is dedicated to the soldiers in the Israeli army. Just a few days before our service, I was in San Diego, taking in the rays, taken in the sun, enjoying the wind. I was at my cousin's wedding having a great time, and before I know it, I find myself shivering cold in the freezing wet rain, sitting in a thorn bush with my sharpshooting weapon, fantasizing about the next time I'd be able to change my socks. But the truth is that there is nowhere I would rather be in the entire world than here in Israel in reserve duty.
One of the reasons Ari and I started Tuesday Night Live in Jerusalem was to help Israel with their PR. The international media always shows the Israeli soldiers as these big, nameless men in uniform that are perpetuating the violence in the Middle East. And tonight we want to show the world the real Israeli soldiers. We want to show the world the other side. The international media always portrays the situation in the Middle East as a cycle of violence. And we're here to say that a terrorist blowing up a school bus is not the same as an Israeli soldier protecting those children. The situation in Israel is not a cycle of violence. If the enemies of Israel put down their guns, there would be peace in the Middle East. If Israel, for one moment, put down their guns, there would be no more Israel. The fantasy of every soldier is to bring peace to Israel. And that's what we want to show the world tonight, the real Israeli soldiers.
Now let me let you in on a little secret. Who here in the room has served in reserve duty? Okay, there's a pretty good showing. Just about every reservist in the Israeli army loves their reserve duty. Now, just like a 6th grader who would never confess that he really likes school, reservists usually complain about their service. But, you know, when you take a full month out of your life, away from your job, away from your family, and thrust yourself into an existence of meaning so much greater than yourself, it's just good for the neshama. But beyond that, reserves is really the only place in Israel where the entire nation comes together. I think probably like many people in this room, I spend most of my time here in Jerusalem in a spiritual, religious bubble. It's such a beautiful existence, but I don't often get out to the entire country. But in reserve service, it's a different story altogether. I find myself on a patrol with a plumber from Holon and a doctor from Haifa and a mechanic from Beersheba, and we're talking about everything. It's an 8-hour patrol. Not only do I find out what he believes in and who he's voting for, but whether he'd prefer to sit on the window or the aisle seat on an airplane, or if he's lactose intolerant, things about his mother's roommate in college, anything. We talk about everything, and it's really the most beautiful experience for the entire nation to come together. You know, I remember our last service, our officer came and he made a prediction that ended up being wrong, but he stood up and he said, well, there's going to be a change now. No longer are we going to be doing a month every year, but now we're going to be doing 2 weeks every 2 years. Now, based on the complaints that you hear so often, you expect people to stand and to cheer and be happy, but they stood up and said, what? You can't defend a country that way. That's ridiculous. We need to serve at least a month every year, because when our precious time together was threatened, that's when everybody's true colors came out.
So what is it about the Israeli army that everyone loves? How is it, if you ask every Israeli soldier, no matter how much they complain about the food or the conditions or the tough missions, everyone really loves it? And what is it? And I think it's that when you can't help, but when you're serving in the first Jewish army in more than a millennia, you're reconnecting to Jewish destiny. And who doesn't want to be a part of that? Before departing on our nightly missions, the religious soldiers gather together with M16 slung over our shoulders, and we pray Mariv, the evening prayer. And although the same words come out of our mouths that came out of my great-great-grandfather's mouth in Russia, we're connecting to a Jewish spirit that's been lost for ages. For centuries, Jews would read stories about Yehoshua and Gidon and Shimshon and King David and feel a little bit alienated from these characters. I mean, what could a defenseless Jew in Poland, trembling at the thought of another pogrom, relate to a psalm-composing warrior king like King David? Israel is forcing us as a people, as a religion, and as a nation to return to what we were always meant to be. Israel is bringing us to our final step. And every soldier serving in the Israeli army is serving on the front lines of Jewish destiny. Now, what everyone needs to think about, for the spectators on the sidelines, they need to ask themselves, do they want to watch Jewish history unfold from their living room in Queens? Or do they want to be a part of this final redemption and take part in the greatest Jewish movement of all times?
Now, I doubt that there's one person in this room that has not at some point felt exasperated by how Israeli soldiers are portrayed as cruel and heartless occupiers, when in reality, the truth is the complete opposite. Hundreds of soldiers that I've served with have proven to be the kindest and most compassionate people I've ever met. You know, I'll never forget, one of our very first reserve, was it our first reserve duty? When we were on the Philadelphia corridor.
It was our first service, not our first training.
Our first service. It was on the Philadelphia corridor. That's the border between Gaza and Egypt. Now, we were on a base called JVT. It was right on the border between Gaza and Egypt, and this was during a very dark point in Jewish history and Israeli history. Soldiers were constantly being sniped at. Roadside explosions were killing them. It was a very dark period. And the main threat that we were facing at this point was that tunnels were being dug under the bases, smuggling terrorists, kidnapping soldiers, and then they would blow up the bases from underneath. We were at JVT, and we heard digging going on under our base. Now, I want you to put yourself in our place. You're standing there, you hear digging going on. There's probably no feeling that is more unsettling than realizing that a tunnel is being dug right there. Who knows when it's going to explode? We went to our commanders, our officers, we told them, and they came and they heard it also. So they called in seismographic experts from the Technion. They tried to figure out how deep it was, where the tunnels were. They couldn't figure it out. So we said to them, why don't you just knock down these houses in the periphery? I mean, that's where the tunnels are coming from. And they said, there's civilians living in those houses. Those are houses of people. You can't just knock down people's private homes. You know, our rabbis say, Hamrachem al ha'achzarim, sofo lihitachzer al harachmanim. He who is merciful to the cruel, in the end, will be cruel to the merciful. And sadly, that's exactly what happened. Shortly after we left the base, it was detonated from underneath, killing 5 soldiers and wounding many others. And while some people are furious at these suicidal misplacement of compassion that they see, the truth is that as Jews, it is incumbent upon us to see the beauty in all of our fellow Jews. And I just thank Hashem that I'm part of a nation that is so overwhelmingly, even suicidally compassionate, because that is the beauty of the compassion and the mercy in the heart of every Jew.
The flag of the Israeli army has an olive branch that comes up from it, an olive branch of peace. The Israeli army is called the Israel Defense Forces because our entire purpose is only to defend the innocent Jewish people that live in our homeland. Every dream of every Jew in the land of Israel and every dream of every soldier, the end of every prayer is that God will finally bless Israel with peace.
What's the worst punishment any soldier could get in the army? Who knows? Any soldiers here? The worst punishment any soldier can get is an ironic name. It's Shabbat, the Sabbath. When your commander says you have Shabbat, that means that your fellow soldiers get to go home and eat a warm meal and be with their friends and their family while you stay back on the base and eat chicken rings and shakshuka. Let's hear it for shakshuka. What's shakshuka? You know, many people, I speak about shakshuka very often, and they wonder, what is shakshuka? Well, it's sort of like tomato paste and hard-boiled eggs. It looks sort of like an aborted chicken. And that is what you end up eating for Shabbat. Now, Jeremy and I went on Friday to the central bus station. to interview all of those Jewish, religious soldiers, not so religious soldiers, whoever we could get. We wanted to show you those soldiers that didn't get Shabbat, that were able to get out, and we really put our lives on the line, standing between those soldiers and the bus that was taking them home, because it was so important for us to have you meet the streets.
And now, Meet the Street with Ari and Jeremy.
צבא יהודי, אנחנו מגינים על הארץ, מגינים על היהודים פה, דבר שלא היה במשך 2000 שנה, כל הגלות. חזרנו לפה בגאווה סוף סוף, סוף הגלות המרה. וזהו, וצבא יהודי זה הדבר הכי טבעי לעם, הכי יפה והכי טוב שיש.
So you're from Brooklyn, New York, yet you're wearing IDF uniforms. You have weapons on you, not quite yet. Here's the question I've got for you. Is it Purim, or are you serving in the Israeli army?
We're serving in the Israeli army.
You're serving.
Most definitely.
What would cause you to give up the luxuries and the affluence and the comfort of New York and America to serve in the Israeli army?
Well, there's a number of different reasons. One of them being I'm Jewish. I felt there's a lot going on, there's a lot of war going on here, and you know, sometimes you feel as an American that you're not really part of it because you're not Israeli, but as a Jew you're just as much part of it as an Israeli is because you're Jewish.
Where do you serve?
We serve in the Nachal Haredi.
The Nachal Haredi, but I thought Haredim don't serve in the army. What's that about?
Well, you have the guys who don't serve, and you have the guys who are more into the current matters, and they actually believe in keeping a Jewish country strong. And so we do all we can to keep the fight going.
So this is a religious Jewish unit. So do you guys study Torah, pray, and then go out to battle?
Yes, pretty much. We have showers in the morning. We have a couple hours a day to learn. We daven three prayers a day.
What do you have in common with King David?
Great looks, killer bod. I have a way with the ladies that none can compete with. So I mean, besides that's pretty much it. I mean, me and David basically like each other.
So what is the connection between you and King David now?
We're both religious Jews, and yet we still fight the war, keeping Jews of Israel safe, Jews of the world safe.
I'm trying to get to the point that he did, where he was fighting solely for the Jewish people and absolutely like no personal connection.
What do you have in common with King David?
Well, I used to be a redhead, and he used to be a redhead.
For all the guys who are like not in yeshiva, not in college, it's definitely a great idea to do. But I would definitely recommend coming to the Israeli army. It's a real honor and a pleasure to do it. The first day you come in there, yeah, it's a little scary. You start off, you're starting with the right foot first. But after a while, besides the training that they put into you, then we know ourselves that we're fighting the right fight, and there's absolutely nothing to be afraid of.
I'm commander of in Tionut of Olim Chadashim,
New immigrants.
Yeah.
What do you teach them?
Tionut and Tzionut.
Basic training in Zionism.
Exactly.
What would your grandfather from Spain think about you serving in the first Jewish army in the land of Israel?
Very happy.
He'll be really proud of me. He was in the. They wanted to take him to the Russian army, and he ran away from there to the American army. He was in the Air Force over there, and he was fighting the Nazi, and probably he was really proud of me.
Ammonites or Moabites? Who would you rather battle?
Well, I definitely think, I got two hands. I got one hand there, one hand the Ammonites, one hand the Moabites, but I think I'll keep my two legs for the Palestinians. They need some help over there.
What is the primary motivation? Do you have a motivation to keep your spirits up fighting in the army?
Yes, to help Israel.
Israel it's my country, and I want to serve it.
It's one of the worthwhile things that we'll do in our lives. I think that raising a Jewish family and helping out the Jewish people is probably a really good thing to do in my life. And I know that if I was wanting to give the best and the most, which I am, then so be it.
Well, our rabbis in the army try to instill in us absolutely no fear at all of any human being, only God. God's the only one you should truly fear. As long as you fear only God, people on the battlefield mean nothing to you and don't put any fear in you at all.
It's everyday miracles. It's not, there's no big one thing happens. Every day people are trying to kill us. Every day there are new things coming up. Every day miracles come up, and people just have to walk by and notice them. We do what we do and God helps us. So obviously we work together. And this is what we do in the world. We work with God.
עם ישראל עובר עכשיו תהליך של גאולה, ומי שלא פה פשוט פספס רגע היסטורי מדהים.
So when are you going to move to Israel and join the Israeli army?
When they get real hot dogs. That's pretty much it.
Welcome back to Tuesday Night Live in Jerusalem. So now we're at the heart of the show. This is the show where the crowd finally gets to voice the true voice from Jerusalem. As we do in every show, we want you to share your experiences in the Israeli army, because every Israeli citizen also happens to be an Israeli soldier. And as we do with every show, we're going right now to Ishai Fleischer, the director of Israel National Radio, the true Jewish voice of a new generation in Israel.
There's no one whose hands I enjoy seeing a microphone in more than Yishai Fleischer. Yishai, tell us about your army experience.
Thank you for giving me the mic, and welcome back, safe and sound.
Thank you.
I saw you guys came into Beitel a few times from your Miluim. These guys are not faking it. I saw them come in with their guns, with their, they weren't as shaven as they are now, a little more battered look, and they've come out of the army just to be here with you. So thank you very much.
Thank you.
I want to say something about the Israeli army that people don't really realize, because when you're not in it, it's hard to understand it, but you guys understand it. One thing about the Israeli army is that you get to speak Hebrew, right? The real Hebrew, not like Tuesday Night Live. You get to speak in like the Hebrew of the nation, and that's something very special about the army that you don't always get to. You get thrown into the Hebrew world, into the prayers of the Sfaradim, our brothers from the our brothers from Arab countries who have joined us here in the land of Israel. You also get to see places that you've never seen before. Am I right? You get to go to bases and places that are only manned by the army, deserts and mountains that nobody else hangs out in, just the Jewish people in green, and that's the army. So that's a big zchut. And the other thing is that you get to meet people that you really don't usually get to meet. We all live inside of our bubbles. Suddenly you get thrown into a Jeep with a guy, like you said before, he's totally different than you, and you're talking about, do you fast on Yom Kippur or not? I had a big conversation with a guy, and he said to me, no, I don't fast on Yom Kippur. An hour later, I got him to fast on Yom Kippur. No problem. You know, we got a big talk. I had to offer my sister to him, though, to get married, so that was that. I want to tell you that you spoke about peace. Peace is very important. We love peace very much. We want peace. We yearn for peace. But the word for peace in Hebrew is from shalom, and shalom means wholeness. We're only going to have peace when we're whole, when the Jewish people are whole, when we feel whole, when little kids who are 8 years old don't get their legs cut off because of a Qassam rocket. The Israeli army is there to defend the Jewish people. And right now we're in a time where a lot of people want to hurt us and attack us. We're standing strong against them. So there's a time of peace and there's a time of war. And the message that we have to send sometimes is, we want peace, but we are ready for war. And that's a tough message, and there's one that we should not back down from. My story is a kind of self-serving story, but I'll tell it anyway. You know, I was in the paratroopers, and I could tell you a lot of war stories, but we were learning to jump out of planes, and it was a 10-day course, and you get to learn how to jump, how to land, everything, emergency situations, throw the second chute, all that business. But I heard a rumor during the first, second, third, fourth, fifth day that at one point they're going to ask you a question: who here wants to jump out of the plane first. That's what the rumor I heard. So I said to myself, everybody wants that. So I want that. So I decided that when they're going to ask that question, I'm going to jump up and go nuts and make sure that they know that I want it more than anybody else. So one day, the final day of the course, the question came, they're like, who here wants to jump? I jumped up, me. I jumped up and I made such a noise. And I was sure that everybody else was also making such a noise. I turned around and everybody was like this. Not me. Just not me. Don't pick me. So they went, you get to jump out of the plane first. And there we were in the plane, packed into the plane. It's not like it looks like in the movies. It's much, much scarier. And you're packed into the plane like a sardine, and the plane has open parts inside. There's smoke leaking inside. You're thinking, this thing ain't gonna fly. And you get in the plane, and suddenly you're sitting there, you look at your friends. I started singing a song, but my friends didn't want to sing a song. They were not in that kind of mood at all, and I saw that my friends had stone faces, and suddenly the light went on, and the car went out, and they called me to the door. And here I was, da-da-da-da-da. You get in front of the door. I can't do this with the mic. You're holding on to the outside of the aeroplane. The outside. Your fingers have the wind of the outside of the airplane, not the inside. And you look down, and the door is open, and you see that below, there's no ground. And right below your feet there is, but then there isn't, and you're like, this is wrong. This is really wrong. And every part in your body's like, no, don't do this. And then you're standing there for 2 minutes, which is an eternity. An eternity! And you're looking down at the little cars. And I remember thinking this, he's listening to his radio, isn't he? He's listening to a radio station, chilling out in that little car over there. And me, I'm scared out of my, I'm scared. And you know what? Then they looked at me like I was a little bit kooky. Those guys are like, this is going to be fun for you, right? The guys that jump out of planes like every day. And then suddenly it's like, go! And you know what you do? You kick your foot out, you kick your left foot out, and the wind turns your whole body, and you're out of the plane, and there's like a second of commotion, and the chute opens, boom! And suddenly everything is quiet, and you look around, and the ground is below you, your friends are falling out of an airplane, and you're like, wow. That's the end of that story.
King David would be proud of that story.
You know, I'll finish with this. I don't know exactly what the point of the story is. But I think the point is, if you want it, go get it. You can go get it. If you want it, it's yours for the taking. You could be first out of that airplane. You want to make Aliyah, you want to be a better Jew, you want to be closer to God, just jump. You could do it. It's all there for you.
Take the dive. There's something very intimidating about a woman in green. And I don't mean the organization. Even though they're intimidating too. What's your name?
Karen. Klein. Claster.
So, Karen, I understand you were in the Israeli army.
Correct.
What was it like to be a woman, not only a woman, but a religious woman in the Israeli army?
Actually, I started off not religious in the army. Which I think is the interesting part, because usually people said to me when I said I was going to join the army, they're like, you're crazy, a girl in the army, it's not safe, sexual harassment, etc., etc., etc. And that was actually the one place where I found myself becoming religious. It was an amazing experience. I think it empowered me as a woman and empowered me Jewishly. Can I share a short story?
Please.
Okay. So like I said, when I joined the army, I started off not religious, meaning I was wearing pants and my regular clothes that I was wearing before. And then at some point when I decided that it was time for me to become more religious, I decided that I wanted to start wearing skirts. Now, for those who have been in the army, know that the army has rules about everything. So it turns out if you sign on for pants in the bakum, where it's originally where you get your clothes, you can't decide somewhere along the line that you want to wear skirts. There's no rule that says that you could switch it over to skirts.
The army hasn't heard of the tshuva movement that's happening in Israel, but it's happening all over.
So I went to the place where you ask for new madim, new army uniforms, and I said I want a skirt. They're like, sorry, you signed on for pants. I said, well, I'm now becoming religious and I feel only comfortable wearing skirts. They're like, I don't know what we can do. They had to call all these people. And then finally it turns out that they can make a loophole inside all the laws that you can wear a skirt even though you signed on for pants originally, which was a very interesting experience, which led me on to other issues that I had later on that also made me feel, like I said before, empowered woman and Jewish-wise. Walking in the street, I was a captain in the army, so walking in the street with a skirt.
Did you all hear that? A captain in the Israeli army. She's not only a woman, she's a religious woman, and she was a captain in the Israeli army.
So the exact face that you have on your face right now was what I would experience walking in the street, literally probably 5 times a day whenever I would get out once every 2 weeks, once every 2 weeks about. Cars would literally stop on the side of the road asking me, "What are you?" Because I was wearing a skirt with captain and a short M16 on my back, and people just looked confused. So it was a very interesting experience. I think the army was amazing for me because I was able to give to Israel in the one way I felt was most, I don't know what the word is. And I also got back because I became a lot of who I am today from serving in the army.
Do you feel like you were able to positively influence the other soldiers?
Definitely. First of all, in the tafkid position that I was in the army, I was a company commander, so I had a lot of other soldiers that I was telling them what to do. But just by the way you look and the way you act, I definitely feel that I was able to influence.
And the final question that we all want to know, I hear he's contributing something. What unit are you training him for?
Matkal.
Matkal, that's the elite forces. Who has a story that they would like to share about their army service? Please tell not only the audience, but the entire world about your experience in the Israeli army.
Well, it just brought back when you guys were talking about the mahut, the reality of the Israeli army, and a Jew sitting in Queens and thinking about, where is Jewish history going to pass me by? I was just remembering, it just brought me back to the States, thinking to myself when I was there, I was like seeing Jewish history unfold. I saw the Intifada unfold, and I saw the way that Israel left Lebanon, and I was thinking to myself, I was finishing college, I was finishing university, and I was thinking, what's the next thing I can do? I can go get a job and everybody will be happy with me, or I can go do something that really means something to myself and something that means to the Jewish people. And I just had a yearning deep down inside of me, a yearning deep down, something that your heart says to you, there's something you have to do and you have to go and do it. It is one of the most worthwhile things that a Jew can do. It is one of the most worthwhile things that a human being can do. And I just want to share one story about the beginning of the army. I was in a unit, a reconnaissance unit. We went into the army. I didn't know what I was doing. It was the first couple of days of the army, and they asked for volunteers to go try out for some unit. So I wasn't sure what it was. I was hoping it would be something interesting. So I went. I did this trial. It was 500 soldiers at the beginning, and it was a few nights and days of just grueling work. And we get to the end of it, and they were choosing, there was like nobody left. We started 500, 600 people, and we were down to about 60 people. And from that, we understood we were going to choose 20. It was a grueling night. It was some of the rain. I'd never felt the rain before this time. You sit at home, you feel rain, and you feel cold, you go through things that you never thought you'd go through. I came into the tent where they were doing the interview, and they asked me, do you have anything to add? I said, no, I don't have anything to add. I don't have anything to say. You saw everything that, I'm able to give. I think that's the most real me, is what I did those last couple of days. But I said, there's one thing I just want to say. I never had so much respect for what the Jewish people are going through in the land of Israel until the last 5 days. The last 5 days I spent in the cold, in the sand, in the dirt, just showed me how determined our enemies are to destroy us, and showed me how determined the Jewish people are to maintain who we are, to maintain our life here. And I think that's one of the things that we have to realize. Coming from the exile, I'm sorry I'm taking so long, but it's one of the things that we as Jews, when we come from the exile, I think it's one of the things we take for granted is we take for granted our comfort. And I think that many people have said it before, and this is kind of a cliche already, but freedom really has a price. And when you're walking down Ben Yehuda, if you're here for the year or you're here for 10 days, freedom has a price. And the price that the Jewish people have to pay their freedom is enormous, but the alternative is so terrible that we prefer to keep that, we prefer to take that choice. I think that every Jew in the exile has to think twice, has to think again and again, is this what I want to do? Is this the reality that I want to be in? Or is there a reality that's harder, but that's more real, that's more mahuti, meaningful? Thanks.
There's so much to take home from serving in the Jewish army, but I just want to leave you with a story just from this last reserve duty. Before I went up to my last guard post, I was reading a sefer. Eliyahu Rabbi quoted from chapter 28, and it said, "So said God to Israel, my children, have I failed to give you anything? What do I ask of you? Only that you love, respect, and revere one another." And with that thought, I went up to my guard post with one of my favorite people in our unit. His name's Shachar. He has a couple of earrings. He has long hair. He lives in Tel Aviv. He's already booked, I think, his 5th or 6th trip to India right after this reserve duty. And I mean, I love the guy so much because we have such different world views, but he's such a seeker. He's always looking, and we have the most incredible conversations. And after 2 hours of patrolling around the streets outside Ramallah, we ended off this heated political debate with Shachar's last line that's changed me forever. And he said, "Jeremy, you know what? It doesn't matter who's here in reserve duty. If you're observant or non-observant, right, left, or center. If you're in reserve duty right now, every single person that goes up to a guard post, every single person that goes on a patrol is ready to give their lives for the Jewish people and for the Jewish state. And that's a love and a unity that can't be found anywhere else in the world." Shalom from Jerusalem.
ay, ay, ay,